friends. I am so excited to be here for the Ladies Power Lunch Summit. And I cannot wait to talk to y'all today about being a rebel. So, one of my absolute favorite things to share about is rebelling. And I want to I want to tell y'all a little bit about what rebelling looks like. Because when I say the word rebel, usually what comes to mind for people is that um, hardcore, I'm going to do things my way, uh, fighting the establishment all the way through, um, very, very in your face kind of attitude, behavior, feelings. But I want to introduce a slightly different way to look at what rebelling can look like. And instead of feeling like identifying as a rebel means we need to do or be or show up in a certain way because there's that archetype of the rebel that gets thrown around. What I'm proposing is that rebelling looks like simply creating your own rules. This can be in your life, this can be in your business, this can be in your relationships. But think about it. If we're going to rebel, that means doing things differently than everyone else. And it's not doing things differently simply for the sake of doing things differently. It's doing things differently to create rules that work for you first. When we create our lives, our businesses, our relationships, most of the time we go into these, it's all relationships, if you will. So I'm just going to kind of call it relationships. We go into these relationships thinking about what we need to do or be for the other person. In business, this looks like creating for clients versus creating for ourselves. And so when we're creating these rules, when we're learning how to do things, when we're setting up how we operate in the world, we're often modeling what someone else has told us. We're often modeling what someone else has shared with us. We're also often modeling what our friends, our family, our parents, our society, the people that we love have told us is what we have to do to be successful, right? What I'm proposing is that we flip that and do it differently. We do it in a way that actually sets you or me, but you as the center of the things. So when I talk about rebelling, I'm talking about actually doing the work to look at what works for you first before anyone else. And this is not in a selfish way. This is looking at what works for you, like really internally, what is aligned, what works for you. So I experienced this very deeply when I started my business in the beginning of 2020. Now, there's a lot going on in the world at that time, and I was leaving corporate. And I took what I knew, which was 10 at that time, 10, 12 years of operations experience in the corporate world, in the military, in other places, and created a business. And I created some really strong rules in my business about when I had to work, where I had to work, how I had to work, how I had to show up, what I needed to do in order to be successful. And I was working 6+ days a week. I was barely seeing my family. I was taking on any and all clients that could possibly come into my world. I was not vetting or reviewing or really sinking into how I desired to show up as the person, the main person in my business that was delivering a service. And I took on my first client and it worked well for a few months. And then I took on my second client, and that continued, that worked well for a while. And then the first client kind of fell off. And we just continued on this cycle where I would say yes to a client, they would say yes to me. The first few months would look like this beautiful honeymoon period where we loved each other and things were working. And then we would get to like month 3 or 4, and something would happen. It was like we would hit this weird wall where the honeymoon period was actually like ending, and we were realizing that this wasn't working. And it wasn't working because neither one of us was actually clear on what we desired in this relationship. So, from my side, I thought that in order to be successful in my business, in order to make money, to do the things I wanted to do at the time, I had to offer my services in a certain way. I was modeling it after the certifications that I was taking and the other people who were doing the same type of work as I was. And that's how I was modeling my offers and my services and my programs. And that's how I was charging. And it wasn't really what I wanted, but I thought it's what I had to do because those were the rules. Those were the rules I was given. And I'm good. I'm very good at following the rules. And my clients were doing the same thing. They were showing up and they were following the rules from their coaches or their mentors or their places that they were in, society, marketing. They were attempting to run their businesses by following the rules. Sometimes we don't even know what the rules were, but we were following the rules, right? And so we would get to this 3 to 4 month mark and things would sort of implode. Things would sort of like all of a sudden it would be really aware that we were not aligned and this was not working for either one of us. So I would do my best. I would show up. I would put in as much structure and operational support for them as I could. And I would leave and I would start this over again. And this cycle continued. At one, I would had upwards of 3 to 4 operations, clients at a time. And it felt like the cycle just kept happening. We'd hit the 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6 month mark, and we would hit this wall. And it wasn't until after I started looking at the rules that I figured out what was going on. I was following self-imposed rules that were coming from my industry, coming from my learning, coming from my certifications, and so were they. So, what I want to invite you to look at here today and every day, if you so choose, is to look at what rules are you following? Because I can tell you now that my inner rebel actually doesn't like rules, or at least that's what she tells me. That's not really the truth because we have rules. The rules that say in order to be successful and productive, I have to be at my desk from this time to this time. The rules don't say what I need to be doing at my desk, but if I'm at my desk, I'm productive, right? I'm working. Is that true? I don't think it's true, but that was a rule that I had. Or the rule that I have to show up on social media a certain way to be successful in my business. I struggled to market and be seen and get visible in my business for years because I had rules that I thought I had to follow. I thought I had to um, wear certain clothes, wear makeup, talk a certain way, not use curse words. I'm doing my best not to use curse words here. And I curse. It's going to come out. If you work with me, you're going to hear me say the F word. I promise you. It's going to happen. But the rules that I had said that I couldn't do those things. And so I shied away from showing up and I shied away from building my business and I shied away from marketing because I actually didn't want to follow those rules. And because I didn't want to follow those rules, I was convinced I couldn't be successful at doing those things because those rules did exist in my head, whether I was conscious of it at the time or not. They were there. So I want you to consider that being a rebel means you get to rewrite the rules or create new ones. Throw out the ones that aren't working. Do the things, create the rules, create the pieces, create all of the things that can work for you, that feel good to you, that light you up and bring you joy and get you out of bed in the morning. You can start to put in your own rules or boundaries into your business, into your life. I have a boundary now that I don't take calls before 9 o'clock in the morning. Now I'm on Pacific time, I'm on the West Coast. And so for a lot of the world, that is behind. I'm behind. And they want to have people start events early in the morning for me. This event, as a matter of fact, starts early for me. So that boundary, that rule means I get to check in every time I need to make a decision about a meeting that's before 9 a.m. my time. Most of the time, that's a no for me. I'm going to ask you to find a different time. Sometimes I will get up early. I will have a meeting early. I will do those things, but it gets to be in alignment with me and I get to check in. I don't have to say yes simply because there's a rule that I have to say yes to things. Oh, that's a simple one. More complex rules get to be pricing for your programs and how you show up in your business, how you design your programs, how many calls you take a month, whether you're doing one-to-one or group programs, whether you're creating more passive courses where you're not showing up live all the time. All of those things impact how you design your business. And all of those rules we have in our head are going to impact how we make decisions. So when we're talking about rebelling and we're talking about rules, what I really want you to get to is to be able to make rebel decisions that are backed up with practical actions. And those rebel decisions get to come from your rules and how you define those rules. So I know what you're thinking. You're looking and you're saying, Amber, that's great. How do I do that? I want you to start really simply. I want you to look at, actually, grab a sheet of paper. Draw a line down the middle of that sheet of paper. And on that sheet of paper, on the left-hand side, I want you to, or I invite you, because you don't have to do this. You get to make rules. So if you don't want to do this exercise, by all means, don't. I want to, so if you so choose, if it feels good, when it feels aligned, or come back to this later when you have time. On that left side of that paper, start writing out the rules that don't serve you right now. Is it a rule about when you're starting your day? Is it a rule about how much money you have to charge for your time? Is it a rule about being productive and what productivity looks like to you? Is it a rule about how many meetings you have to be productive? Do you have any rules about how many clients you have to be successful? How many times you have to post on social media in order to get traction? That's a rule that I used to have. But really sink in and really look at how you're operating in your life, in your business. This can be family rules, what time you start your day, what time you end your day, how many days a week you want to work, how many days a week you enjoy working. One of the other rules that I've been shifting is the difference between weekdays and a weekend. A lot of the world works from Monday to Friday, right? We work for the weekend, corporate, that's kind of what we're doing. And so if I take off time during the week, that would feel wrong. And conversely, if I chose to work on the weekends, that felt wrong. And so redefining what days of the week and what the work week and the weekend look like and choosing to rebel in my way, I often take Fridays off and work on Sundays because that's what works for me. But Saturdays are a family day, and that's a hard rule in our house. I don't work on Saturdays at all. So really look at your day, start by looking at your calendar, start by looking at your offers and your programs. What's not working? What's not aligned? And once you've taken the time to go through that and kind of got it all out of your head, you don't have to do it. You don't have to get it right. You don't have to get it all in one shot. Take your time, come back to it. This exercise can be done multiple times in multiple ways. You could choose one area to focus on first. You don't have to change everything at once. I promise. I promise. You get to do this however you desire. So once you've got your rules that aren't working, on the right-hand side, I want you to take some time and consider how you want to shift those rules and create new rules. So take each one of those. So if it's like me and there's a rule that I must work Monday through Friday and not work on Saturday and Sunday and not take time off Monday through Friday. The new rule I'm going to work on, the new rule that I want to create is that I get to work when it feels really good. And most weeks that flow looks like working Monday through Thursday, taking a good portion of Friday off or very slow to kind of reset and recharge, spending Saturday with my family, and working on Sunday if it feels good. I don't work every Sunday. Sometimes it's usually just a few hours. I like to kind of set up my week and do that. But to the rest of the world, to other people looking in, to people who aren't maybe rebels, that looks like a really rebellious thing to do. And yet it's very simple and it gets to be for you. So I'm not going to take down the entire establishment by creating this new rule. And I'm absolutely going to show up in a way that feels good for me. And I'm going to be a rebel and create those rules in a way that works for me first. And my family in this particular case for part of it, right? So take each one of those rules that aren't serving and rewrite them. And then for the next month, focus on how you're holding to or the things you need to shift to hold to those rules. So if we take my example again, that means not having any of my my auto scheduler, any of my scheduling links or appointments scheduled. No one can schedule on a Friday unless I manually do it. You can't go to my coffee chat link or my calendar links or book a call with me on Fridays. So I've put in other boundaries to support my rules, to help me be in alignment with my rules, which makes my rebel very happy. And I get to work in a way that feels really good and aligned for me. So what I want you to hear as we close out, take this exercise slowly or quickly. You get to do what you want. But invitation to not try to change everything all at once, to look at where are the parts and places that feel really out of alignment or kind of frictiony, and rewrite those rules and make the shifts and do the little steps to create your optimal life, because that's what this looks like, y'all. Being a rebel, creating your own rules, creating your optimal life looks different for everyone. And when you come into it and you really, really sink in and you really check in with yourself and your heart and your soul and decide that you're allowed to do this differently That's when everything starts to change. And that's when you get to really step into you and life and living optimally and growing. So have an amazing time. Have fun with this exercise and create your rules, friends.